Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hacking with Friends. Today, we're going to be doing something really exciting, and that is Wi-Fi signal hunting, which means tracking down the source of a Wi-Fi signal, which could be an access point or something like a smartphone or laptop. Now, the person who made that possible is our guest today, Stefan Kremser, a Wi-Fi security researcher also known on the internet as a space chicken.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. And I am, as always, Cody Kinsey, a security researcher at Varonis. And the reason why I'm so excited about this project is, well, I've been bothering Stefan about it for many months now. And I finally got him to cave and integrate this feature into the Wi-Fi deauthor. And I'm really excited because it allows you to do things that frankly were not possible before. Now, we're going to talk about a lot of different use cases for this over the course of the stream, but really what this is the ability to monitor signal strength and use that to be able to figure out where a device is. There's a lot of reasons why you might want to do this. Maybe you're at an Airbnb and suddenly you notice that there's a Wi-Fi camera that's broadcasting an access point, and it's somewhere inside the room and you don't know where it is and you'd really like to find out. Or maybe there's just some really weird access point in your house or in your apartment and you would love to know which one of your neighbors is the one who is responsible for that network. All of these things are possible. In fact, it's even possible to have a specific client device like a cell phone and be able to tell roughly how far away it is from the source, which in this case is going to be a little D1 Mini or the more advanced Andromeda deauthor. So I have this connected to a big cable because we're going to be plugging this into a directional antenna today. But what I really like about this is we're going to go over two ways of detecting a device. One of them is using this really cheap generic D1 Mini module, and this is going to allow us to have an omnidirectional view. Basically looking around us in a big circle and trying to figure out where it is by going in one direction and seeing if it gets stronger, and then going in another direction, kind of playing hot and cold to determine where something is. Now, the Andromeda deauthor, which was not only the software was designed by Stefan, but also this is his first hardware design, I believe, right, that you're selling directly?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is the first thing that is actually completely by Stefan, and of course our friend Brix as well, and some other collaborators like our friend Howdy Burgers, James, as well. What this allows you to do is mount any sort of antenna to the ESP8266 and start using that directional antenna to not just like walk around and try to figure out where something is by looking at the signal strength and figuring out if you're getting hot and cold, but actually using something like this that works more like a flashlight and kind of only sees strongly in one direction to sweep around and be able to locate where something is without actually moving at all. And if you're doing fox hunting, trust me, it's easier to like stop in a position, scan around and figure out where the hotspot is, walk over a little bit and do it again, than like walking around just looking for when, you know, the signal strength starts to get hotter. Like this is a much more effective way of tracking down the signal of any sort of Wi-Fi device. And this could, again, be like an IoT device that has shown up in your house and you're not sure like where it came from, a neighbor with a really crazy offensive or weird Wi-Fi name where you just want to know who's responsible for that network, or some sort of rogue device, or maybe even a person that you want to know when their device is near maybe a room, a computer, something like that. So I've even proposed in the future that me, Stefan, and James work together to make this like a trigger so you can make a program run when a certain device has a strong enough signal strength. So like if someone were to come in your room, for example, maybe your computer locks down or something like that. There's all sorts of ways you can use this information, both for tracking down a signal and also learning about the person behind it. So if you want to try out the more advanced version of this, Stefan is selling these on his store, spacehoon.store. Which you can buy in the EU. And you can also go to hackerinterchange.com or just hack.gay if you want to buy this in the United States. I think there's like 30 of them left. So anyways, if you want to follow along and you already have I have a Node MCU, but it's too far away. But a Node MCU or a D1 Mini, you can absolutely follow along with this too. You just won't be able to do the directional part, which honestly I feel like is the coolest part of this. But you know, you can still walk around and just try to determine where the device that you're trying to track is by, you know, when you're getting hot versus when you're getting cold. Not as much fun, but These things are really, really cheap on Amazon. You can also buy them on both of the websites I mentioned before, and they are both, going to be a bit cheaper than this custom board. But because this custom board was designed by Stefan, I really, really like it because it has so much flexibility and it's very well made in Germany. So hand soldered. There was somebody in our comments that was just like, the soldering doesn't look quite sturdy enough. And Stefan was just like, I soldered that. Like, I know it's sturdy. So not to call that guy out, but yes, it's quite sturdy. So you can mount a very large antenna on this. Now, I did have someone also in my DMs who's working on a project like this with a Node MCU, and it is both amazing and cursed at the same time. It's like, Stefan, I think I said it to you. It's like, he basically tried to replicate this project and like amazed me by doing so, by like disconnecting the antenna and connecting them to like soldering them to breakout pins and then soldering that to like a huge cable, which goes to like a highly directional Yagi. And like, it's, the cable itself is probably like generating enough loss that like that's not like the best way to do that, but still it's amazing that other members of the community are basically trying to do the same thing that this device accomplishes, because it's really cool to be able to take one of these D1 minis and connect it to an antenna that's maybe directional or a little bit more interesting than the standard built-in one on the PCB. So here also I have an example of a D1 mini. This isn't the D1 Mini Pro, but Stefan, the D1 Mini Pro actually has a little SMA adapter you can plug into. And I actually did like an entire Nullbyte video plugged into it thinking I was like connecting it to like another antenna. And it turns out that unless you take a soldering iron to it, it actually will not work. So even though there is a D1 Mini that's relatively cheap, that seems to allow you to do what we're talking. Oh yes, thank you, Stefan. So as you can see in the top corner, there's that little circle thing that you can plug an adapter into, and you can attach a larger antenna. Yeah. So that little 0 ohm resistor has to be resoldered from one position to another, and it's so small that it basically blows away if you use a heat gun, and if you try to use tweezers, it's just like so perilous. I've ruined 3 of these trying to like move this over. So the whole reason that Stefan and I started talking about like why a device like the Andromeda D-Author is something that would be really cool for Wi-Fi hackers is just that if you want to start playing around with interesting antennas right now, you actually have to be into soldering. You have to be willing to break a couple of them potentially because it's so difficult to do so. So if you want to change out, this adapter for the other one, you can literally just, screw it in, and suddenly you have a highly directional Wi-Fi adapter, or antenna rather, that is connected to a microcontroller that's already pre-programmed and allows you to do some of the stuff like we're going to do today. So we've covered like de-authing, we've covered phishing, we've covered pulling information out of smartphones by basically presenting a bunch of fake networks and seeing which ones they try to connect back to, and then disconnecting them from their current network and forcing them to connect to one of those networks we found out that they will connect to. That's a pretty advanced attack. And today we're going to be going in a whole different direction. We're going to be using this new feature called the RSSI. It's just called RSSI right now, but it's basically an RSSI scan where we are looking at the received signal strength indicator. Is that what it stands for?
Yes, exactly.
So can you explain a little bit about how that works? Because the average person is going to be confused by what they're about to see. Because when the signal strength becomes like I guess like a higher negative number, but intuitively just like a lower number, it looks like that means that the signal is actually better. So how could a normal person understand like what we're actually measuring today?
Well, what we're going to see is you start the command, and then it gives you this number, and it's going to be a negative number, and that's the signal strength you receive from packets that were sent from the MAC address you're targeting. So we will look at just scanning for packets from a specific MAC address, so from a specific device, and then it will show you the average signal strength from all the packets it received each second, for example. And that number is negative because the way radios work essentially is you lose energy, right? And the weaker the signal, the smaller the number. And these are I can't really give a good explanation about this. This is logarithmic decibel numbers, something like that.
Yeah, I've tried to describe it in ways that are like factually completely wrong, but give like lay people an understanding. I'm like, oh, well, you can think about it as like the amount of signal like loss that's being experienced. So if you're at like 90%,
Yeah.
it's basically, you can think of it as like there's 90% signal loss. You're basically barely able to receive that station. And then if you're at like, 30%, then like you're barely losing anything. But really that's not quite what it is. The thing about RSSI is it's calculated by the chipset. So it's not an absolute, it's not a standard that's consistent across multiple like Wi-Fi adapters or really anything. Really what RSSI is trying to do is give a relative guess of how close a device is or how clear the connection is between it. So it's sometimes not a very scientific number, but in general, you can rely on it to do things like signal hunting because provided you understand what you're seeing, you can still use it to determine where the signal's strongest. So today, we might not even need to maybe find the location of a device to hunt it down. Maybe we need to connect to a network that's far away and we have a directional antenna and we need to know exactly where to set it up. I mean, this is a perfectly viable way of finding the strongest signal with a directional antenna as well, and then just setting up your Wi-Fi connection there if you wanted to use this technique to do that too.
Yeah, also, because this is a logarithmic number between, for example, -30 and -40, or let's say -30 and -60, it's not like twice as much or twice as less. It's actually much, much, much more the difference in between them.
Yeah, that's something that where in future iterations, it might be useful for us to come up with a way for people to understand the number they're seeing a little bit better, to like get immediate feedback when like there's a big spike in the signal. But it's just a little difficult because while this information was out there, until Stefan created the sniffer here, the way to do this is actually to just would have been to run a scan that's relatively short, look at the number, and then move, run another scan, and that scan can take like a second or two, maybe a couple seconds. So it really takes a long time to even get one reading, one number that tells you how strong the signal is in a particular place. And what Stefan has done is basically written a script that once we tell it what network we want to listen to, will allow us to just single out that network and constantly update, or really update as often as we want. Now, there's kind of two philosophies about this. If we update it more slowly, we'll receive more packets and get a better overall signal strength. So for a second or two, the received signal strength will probably be more accurate provided we're staying still. But if we want to get a better snapshot and we're relatively close enough that we're receiving a lot of packets from a device, then we can set the time interval where it's refreshing to be very, very short. And what that does is allow us to monitor something that's close or transmitting a lot in very minute detail. So maybe we're only getting 2 or 3 packets, so it's not really averaging them, it's just displaying the raw data. That's a really cool way that we can use this to get a ton of information and be able to tell if a simple little turn of our wrist with a directional antenna is really increasing the signal strength in real time. It decreases the lag, and it makes it easier for us to know basically where this device is or that we're looking for.
Yeah, and walls and all these things, they reflect signals as well. So it's kind of interesting to see all the numbers in real time and just walking around. I did that in my apartment because I kind of knew already from like experience where like the weak spots of the Wi-Fi are, but now I could just see them in raw numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's all sorts of weird like bouncing effects and other things you'll observe. But I mean, the numbers don't lie. If you're able to find a really strong connection by like bouncing off the ceiling, which then for some reason like increases your signal strength, you'll find that you can detect like really good paths for directional connections. And then, if you're doing like a long range thing, this allows you to position whatever device you're working with in the optimal configuration, pointed at the exact correct source. So that's why I think this tool is so awesome, and I think we're going to do some additional stuff on this. We were joking earlier that this was the toilet cam detector, but realistically, I think we're going to do another stream on this where we can detect and then disrupt an unwanted Wi-Fi camera. Again, maybe you're like an Airbnb or in like a public space, and there's just like a Wi-Fi camera, and you can detect it using something like this. Well, we can take a look at identifying a device by manufacturer, so definitively identifying like, hey, this is likely to be a camera, and then being able to actually disrupt the feed of it. So we'll show what that looks like. Of course, this needs to be something you have permission to attack, or that's like invading your privacy and obviously shouldn't be there, and you're disabling it for like safety reasons. But yeah, either way, I think it would be an interesting use case of this tool is finding an unwanted IoT device. Maybe your neighbor has been connecting to your Wi-Fi for months and you don't know which one it is, and you want to find out exactly who that is. You could use this technique to scan your Wi-Fi network, see who's connected, identify who shouldn't be there, and go like this until you find the neighbor that has been stealing your Wi-Fi. So lots of really cool applications for this, which is why I'm glad that Stefan finally caved and wrote it. So thank you for that.
No problem.
All right. So
I mean, it's not like it's completely finished. There will be more.
Yeah, so these kind of double as debugging sessions where, we will run this and sometimes stuff doesn't work. So we're really happy that we have a community that is willing to, go with us through these kind of bleeding edge projects. And that's why I really like having Stefan on as a host, because if you guys have any comments or suggestions, provided they're not like ridiculous GitHub requests, which he gets all the time, then we love to hear about like new features or other clever ways of using this, maybe exploits we haven't heard about, ways of abusing Wi-Fi we haven't thought about, because this stuff is really, really cool. And we're already learning a lot more about it just by kind of playing with it. So yeah, if you want to play along with this, then as I mentioned before, you'll need some sort of ESP8266 based development board. If you want to be very fancy, then you can grab the Andromeda from either spacetune.store or hack.gay. There you go. Or if you just want to be basic, then you can use a D1 Mini or a Node MCU. Any should be fine for this, but we're going to be using the ESP8266 deauthor, only we're not doing any deauthing. Isn't that amazing? Instead, we're going to be going to the deauthor, and then if you click on the branches, you need to go to the V3. Now, the difference between the V2 and the V3, Stefan, how would you describe the differences?
Hard to put in like a single sentence. So, but I'm trying to be short. So V2 is right now, I would say, a bit more beginner friendly because it creates this access point that you can connect to and control over that website that it also hosts. V3 is more made for more advanced stuff, so you can run multiple commands and give it more parameters and just be more specific about things. So definitely, yeah, made for more advanced attacks and workflows, but it doesn't have the whole web interface stuff yet. So it's completely command line based over serial, and yeah, I guess that's what we are going to see now as well.
Yeah, I would say it's luxuriously command line based because our friend James wrote an amazing non-platform specific, so it should work on any operating system. Like wrapper for being able to use this. So it's literally as easy as you run Hunator in like whatever terminal you're using, you plug this in, it auto detects it, and then, it just goes. So I really, really appreciate the fact that we've made this super easy for the advanced version, even for people who aren't as familiar with command line to get started with. But the big draw to the V2 and the reason why a lot of people like it is that it offers that web interface. So even if you're on your smartphone, if you're on like a Chromebook or something, you don't have to plug it into your computer. You can just connect to the Wi-Fi network and start issuing commands. Of course, the drawback is then the only Wi-Fi card on this thing is stuck busy, like providing an interface for you to tell it what to do. So it means that there's a lot of stuff you can't do. And that's why the V3 is where I bully Stefan into including a new feature that may or may not work. And we figure it out over the course of people trying it, but it also allows us to test out bleeding edge new tools, new tactics, and new ways of abusing Wi-Fi. So if you guys want to stay up with the most advanced version of using microcontrollers to attack stuff over Wi-Fi, then the V3 is where it's at. So to get it yourself, you can go to the GitHub's Spacetune Tech /ESP8266_deauthor, and then make sure to go to the V3 here. And you'll need to, if you scroll down, go to the nightly deauthor releases. Once you're there, you can download the V3, not the V2.5, but the V3 nightly.bin, Click on that. You see it's downloaded here for me. And then if I want to flash this, I'm going to go over to my terminal. So I'm going to make this much larger as well. So one way that I cheat and I can just see which serial ports are plugged in is I can type Hunator. Oh wait, that was the last command. And you can see not only do I get a giant chicken as a reward, I also get a list of all the serial ports on the computer. So everything that's plugged in. And if I were to unplug this and run it again, it's very obvious which ports are the right one. So also, if I were to, I'm going to exit. I have to exit because if I just plug this in, the Hunator is so smart, it just detects it automatically and just starts rolling with it. So, all right, let's say that I have a D1 Mini. It's either unprogrammed or it is maybe on the V2 of the ESP826060 author. This is the command I need to run in order to update it. And I'm going to make it bigger and hopefully cut it off more cleanly. No, it's just worse. Smaller then. All right, that's good enough. So, oh, wow, that's not good at all. Okay, so we're going to be using a tool called esptool.py. This is easy to install. You can install it with pip. There's a couple other installation guides we've done with like installing ESPTool, but if you have Arduino IDE installed and you've done all the steps that we have instructed you to do with setting that up, then it should have installed ESPTool because that's what it uses to write to the ESP8266. Next, and actually you can copy this command as well from, not there, hopefully here. No, here? No, where is it?
It's
there. So you can copy the commands also from right here. Wait, where are they?
Installing using Arduino
here it is.
CLI and then the last one.
Okay, well, on the first one, installing using the bin file. If you just copy this command right here, put the port that it's connected to, which I just get by running Hunator, and then the bin file, or the path to the bin file at the end here. If I run this command, what will happen is my board will start flashing, and it'll connect, and it will start uploading the bin file and allow me to use the newest version of the Hunator. So that is excellent. All right. So once this is done, then I should be able to... Why is my dock out here? Nobody wants that. Sorry, I'm just gonna get rid of that. No one wants to see my dock. Or if they have to, make it small. All right. So once we get to 100% here, then we're going to be able to basically just run this in Hunator. So I just wanted to go through, if you're a complete beginner, you've never done this before, run Hunator. And I'm gonna, you can see that there's multiple different ports here. There's this one and this one. It seems to me that it's almost always the third one, but if I do the fourth one, let's see what happens. Yeah, see, it says it couldn't create port object. Mysterious. But if I run Hunator again and just select option 3, it gives me a warning about using my powers for good. And that's because you can really mess a lot of stuff up with this tool. So it's really important for us to note all the time, every time we feature this tool, that this is something that you are responsible for using, and it is entirely possible to do stuff that will either damage other people's equipment or cause failures that could be a big deal, or otherwise get yourself in trouble with it. So please make sure that you know your local laws before you use any of the attacking features, which we are not going to be going over today. Everything we're going to be covering today should be safe and legal to do, provided that it is all right for you to sniff wireless data, which in Germany, I guess it is, yeah?
Let's not get into that.
Okay, all right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and type help. And it's going to seem a little overwhelming, but you can see that there's a ton of documentation here. It's really easy to know what you're supposed to do if you want to run, for example, the sleep command or any of the other commands that are featured here. The problem is it's a little bit verbose. So if we want to make this less verbose, then we can type help attack S, and that gives us the short version, which is just a very condensed example. I'm going to make this smaller a bit so we can see maybe complete lines. Maybe, no. Smaller still. Okay, there we go. That's a bit better. Sort of. So we're looking for RSSI, and I'm going to highlight it so it's a bit more clear. But what this is telling us is the command that we can use, the arguments that are necessary. So we need a MAC address. We need to say which device we are scanning for, and then the channel that it's on. So if we don't set this, I believe it just jumps around to random channels, right, Stefan?
Yeah.
Okay,
Then
so we
it
don't
just select. Yeah.
so we don't actually need to know the channel that it's on, but at least in the United States, we have like a 1 in like 11 chance of being on the wrong channel at any given moment if we don't tell it what channel to be on. So our results will be substantially worse if we don't tell it what channel to be on before we start our scan, right?
Yeah, best you figure out which channel the device you are searching for is on at this moment, and then just specify that specific channel. That will give you the best results.
Yes. And of course, again, that is because if your card is busy switching around on other channels, listening for something that's not there, it's not going to hear the device that you're looking for most of the time. So that's why it's better in this case for us to be able to actually like select something and then be like specific about it with the channel. So I'm going to go ahead and type scan, and that means that you guys are going to see a blurred screen because we don't want to dox ourselves. So you can see that when the scan runs, it's going to, not pick any particular channel, and it's going to do both a scan for access points and a scan for clients. So we're talking about, when we talk about clients, cell phones, laptops, IoT devices, things that connect to a wireless network. And then we're also going to have access points, which are things that are connected to a wireless network. And this is huge. So I'm going to resize the screen again. And now that we've settled, hopefully we don't have to blur everything, but let's see if this is working. Okay, so I actually have to run the scan again because I didn't capture the one I was looking for, but I'm going to do an argument now. So I'm going to do scan-ch1. And what that means is it's going to restrict this scan to channel 1. So I should see a lot more information about devices that are specifically on channel 1. So I see a ton of client devices, which is useful for me if I'm, looking for an evil client device that I don't like or something like that. But I'm still not seeing. Let me double check that this is on. This one.
You prepared a VMOS board that's beacon spamming, right?
Of course I did. Oh yeah, so I should explain what I've done here. So I have taken, it also might be, I'm pretty sure it's a bad micro USB cable. So maybe my production staff, our sometimes host Michael, could grab me one. So yeah, basically what I'm doing here is I'm going to take a beacon spammer. So that's another piece of Stefan's, I'll actually unplug this for now. That's another piece of Stefan's software. And I'm going to be broadcasting a network that's not really here. So if
it's basically sending a bunch of packets, advertising a network like, hey, I'm here, this is my name, this is what I can do. And that's how you find Wi-Fi networks. If, for example, you go on your phone and just see the network list, that's how this works. And so you set up a device that just advertises, I guess, just one network or like a bunch of different ones.
So you can, I think we figured out that on the beacon spammer, the ceiling is quite high. I think you can do like up to 100, I think, fake networks at the same time. And because I'm using the beacon spammer and not the deauthor, the deauthor can actually create fake networks as well. But I think it's limited at like 65 or so. But the beacon spammer is capable of doing even more. All right, so I have plugged in the Hunator because, okay, Michael's found me a short USB cable. Cool, this might work. I plugged in the Hunator. I plugged in the Andromeda deauthor and ran the Hunator. I'm now connected, so I'm going to try running scan-ch1, and I'm also using the omnidirectional antenna. So this is going to be, oh, there we go. That's our target. Never going to give you up. So it's going to continue running the scan and so on, but this is a good opportunity for me to return just the access points with the result command, right? Can I do that? You wrote this.
Results AP, yeah.
Yeah, so if I type results -AP, Or is it
Just results AP, I believe.
results AP? Cool. Awesome. Okay, so that did exactly what I wanted. It took a look at the results of our scan and only returned the access points. So in this case, I'm going to highlight the one that we're interested in. This one, never going to give you up, is rickrolling us, which is unforgivable. And if this was a malicious IoT device, then we would definitely want to know who put this in our house and why it's here. So let's go ahead and use this to be able to start tracking the signal strength of the device. And, oh heck. All right, Michael's gotten me world's shortest USB cable. So one of the things I was going to do will not work, but I'm gonna try something else. Hold on. First, I'm gonna try this USB cable. Let's see if we can get that to work.
You want to try to signal hunt it using a directional antenna, correct?
Well,
Yeah,
no,
so
an omnidirectional antenna at the moment. We're gonna try that first.
Okay, yeah, no, I was just going to explain that these come with this, the round antennas, from like Wi-Fi routers and everything. Those are omnidirectional. And then you also got a tiny, that looks like a bit of a, I don't know, patch-shaped antenna,
Yes.
like a, yeah. And that's a directional one. So, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna reconfigure this, which also sucks. So earlier I was using a lithium ion, but it's too late, bro. Earlier I was using a lithium ion battery, and I regret not using it anymore because the one that I'm using now is very sleepy. Okay, so I've taken the good cable, plugging it in, and we're going to use just the D1 Mini, and I'm going to use this longer cable to be able to identify this, try to identify like roughly where this is coming from. So, all right, let's scan, oops, Hunator. I'm going to select number 3. I'm going to scan CH. I'm going to then, I think I can just like stop. Results AP. There it is. I see it again. Okay, so we found it. So we're right back where we were, but now we're using the D1 Mini. So this is omnidirectional. It's just using the built-in little antenna. Let's see what we can do if we're just using like the cheap version of this. So we're going to do RSSI is the command, then MAC. We're going to just paste the MAC address, and then we're going to do CH1. And then, what is the other argument, Stefan? It's like the refresh time, right?
UT, yeah, update
UT.
time.
UT, so update time. So let's start out with an update time of like is it 1 second by default?
I think oh god, I might have set it to 500 milliseconds with the last update.
That's okay. I'll just do 500 milliseconds and let's run it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're receiving packets. And we can see on the left side the RSSI and on the right side packets. And the reason that we did this is this tells you how many packets per second you're achieving. And that lets us know if we can make this update time faster or slower. So let's say that, I get these results and I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm getting like between 6 and 12 to 15 packets per second. That means I can probably set this update time a little bit faster. Now, if you were getting a different result, maybe instead of 10, you were only getting 1. Well, then you've probably hit a good channel update time and you don't want to go any faster. But for me, I'm going to do maybe 200, no, maybe 250 milliseconds. And this should be twice as fast and give us more information. And we should see maybe 3 packets per capture or per update. Yeah, look at that, 3 packets. So that's giving us more responsiveness. So now I can move it this way and I can move it this way. And I can start to make Hey, wait, Stefan, did you add that little bar?
Yeah, I did.
I like
You
that.
didn't notice until now?
No, I just noticed. I'm sorry. Okay, so let me make this bigger so you can Stefan's glorious bar he added. So if I move it this way, I can, like, away from the source, I can see that the bar gets smaller and sadder. It's a sad bar. It doesn't like being over here. If I move it over here, the bar is greatly excited. provided it's at a good orientation. I can still twist it around so that it's not quite at a good orientation here and get a bad signal. But in general, it's easy to tell that over here, it's sad, and over here, it's getting closer to the source of the device. So let's run a little experiment. I'm gonna bring up both boxes. Hopefully this thing doesn't turn itself off. And
by the way, I checked and the default time is 1 second, and I think that's a good time to start with and just see how many packets you get per second and then adjust from that. Because if you have a target that's not broadcasting constantly, then 1 second is probably a good time to start with.
I agree. So, all right, you guys can probably see on my little screen here, I have a box on one side and a box on the other, and you can't see what's inside. So we're going to try to tell, just using the D1 Mini, which box is which. So if I bring it over here and I put it close to the box on the left, you can see we're getting an average. I'm even going to rotate it and see what happens. We're getting a signal strength of around like 43, 44 right now. And then if I take this, bring it over here and put it on top of our other suspect box, we're getting 26, 27.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, so we can determine that this box is empty. This box does not have the device that we're looking for. Even though they're only a couple feet apart, we can use this device to tell that, in fact, this is the one that has the thing we're looking for. Now, if we're hunting down like a toilet cam or something, then obviously, walking around, like, you could probably start, in one place of the room that makes sense. But if it's something that you're not sure where this is, walking around and trying to find when the signal goes up and down could be a little tedious, especially if you have a short cable. Right now, we're plugged into all sorts of production stuff, so I can't move my laptop around. But as you can see, I still need to actually physically place this near the source in order to see the source. And now it looks like it's turned off. So I have to, with my newfound discovery, open this and turn it back on. This is why using a lithium-ion battery, I think, is actually better than just doing this. So do I have to reset it? That's so lame. Unfortunately, it's just a button press. So we're going to work some more on making like targets like this that are fun to track and like react when you hack them. But for now, I think it reset its MAC address too. So we'll have to completely change out the scan when we do it with the Hunator. Or sorry, not the Hunator, the Andromeda deauthor. All right, so now let's go ahead and show off what a directional search looks like. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the omnidirectional like stick antenna off of this, and instead we're going to plug in this cable, which is going to give us a little bit more room to work with. So we're going to plug the Andromeda into our computer, and then we're going to have our directional antenna connected to this cable, which is connected to our Andromeda. So one thing to keep in mind is the longer this cable, the more loss that you get. So if you have like a huge mass of copper between like the device that you're trying to connect to and then, the antenna, then the loss in between here and also like interference that might be picked up by the antenna by the cable acting as its own antenna is something to be aware of. So this is like a decent short amount of cable that was meant for use with a directional antenna, actually a Yagi antenna. So this is a pretty good cable for this, and I recommend just keeping these as short as possible for whatever it is that you're doing. So I'm going to plug this in. You'll see that the Hunator disconnects. Oh, actually, let me show off the feature where it automatically connects. So if I don't know the port, I run Hunator, it's just waiting for me. I plug this in, boom, it just connects automatically, which I think is really nice because a lot of people get confused with this stuff. So, all right, we've connected to the Andromeda. We're going to scan, and I'll specify CH1. And right now it's going to scan away. It's going to be huge, so I'm also going to make it smaller. Even smaller? Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to type results. AP. Oh my god, it's not done. Okay, results, AP. Results.
Pro tip, by the way, you can also just type scan AP and then it will only scan for APs and only print those out.
Ah, wait, I forgot to, no, okay, sorry, this is all gonna be blurred. Scan AP-CH1 is what I forgot.
Although it's still going to show you stations, of course.
It sure
because
will.
You scanned for these before.
Ah.
That's why.
Yep, that's okay. All right, so results. AP.
Mhm.
All right, there. So I can see, cutting through the blur, that we have our target again. And it has a brand new MAC address. Thanks. This is just my power brick, just keeps turning off. All right, so if I copy this, then I can structure my command just like I did before for fox hunting. RSSI, the MAC address, and then CH1, because we can see it's operating on channel 1, so we get optimal efficiency. And then update time, we'll do 250 milliseconds. Just because we kind of know what we're looking for. And then I'll take this, I'm going to point it directly in the middle. All right, we've got something. I'm going to make this bigger again. I will regret that later, but we'll get to that bridge then. And we can see we're hovering at around 30. So if I turn this to the left, and keep in mind, I'm not moving, I'm just reorienting it, it drops down to 50. So this is bad. Our signal strength is bad. And look at that, Stefan. The bar is gone.
Yeah, you're running on an older firmware there.
I am. Okay, so I'm actually, maybe I'll update this just to show you guys what it looks like. But so we can see, though, just from looking at it, that it's averaging at between 58 and 60, which is a terrible signal strength. That's not great, especially being so close to our source approximately. So if I reorient this, and we have our eye here now facing the other box, it drops down dramatically. And again, I haven't moved. All I've done is just turn this in a different direction, and I can instantly see, oh my God, like obviously the source of the signal is over here. And I can even orient the direction up and down, and I can see in real time that I can get 29 if I twist it down just a little bit. So this lets me be much more precise. And this is like basically like a wand tool for like finding wireless devices now. I just look here, I look at the, oh, it's turned itself off again. Good, that allows me to update this. But it's basically something that allows us to very, very quickly, without moving our position, find not just like the general direction it's coming from, but even the angle that it's coming from. So much more useful for finding unwanted cameras, IoT devices, nosy neighbors, or people that otherwise are operating a Wi-Fi device, and you want to know physically what direction they are from you. So, okay, if I want to, I'm going to stop. No, cancel. Cancel. Okay, cool. And then I'm going to exit. And I'm going to very quickly run this again, get the port number. And I want to update this to the latest version because it's really easy. And I appreciate that. If I go back up in my commands and just put in a different port number, then I can update the Andromeda deauthor as well to have the fantastic signal strength bar, which I think definitely makes it a bit more intuitive to tell when you're close to something. But yeah, so same basic process. It's just a lot easier to do because you plug it in directly. You don't have to have a faulty or extremely short USB Type-C cable. You can just plug it directly into any USB Type-A and get started with it. So I think that is pretty good for our demonstration on signal hunting today. I mean, frankly, I can pick any wireless device when I want to know. I can pick any wireless device where I want to know exactly where it is. I could pick my temperature gauge that's currently telling the temperature outside. I could pick my router if I want to find the strongest signal in my room using a directional antenna, or like one of those access points that will connect to your router and then offer a boosted signal. If you want that to work well, then this is a great way to figure out what part of your room has the best reception, or figure out exactly the best directional path to a wireless network, or a wireless device. And Stefan, I appreciate you finally caving to my demands on this, because as you can see, I think it's great and I could play with this all day. There's a lot of different ways you can use this, and I think that branching off from this, being able to identify rogue devices or find where a particular device is, deauth it, connect it to a phishing page, like all of that can be integrated in this to make a much more advanced version of a Wi-Fi attacking device. So yeah, I just think this is super cool.
Yeah, totally. You can combine this with other scenarios, and yeah, I think this could be quite useful.
So if you want to try this out, make sure to check out Stefan's GitHub. go ahead and update to the latest version of the dauthor v3 and try out the RSSI feature with the awesome signal strength bar and see if you can track down the location of a Wi-Fi device. I mean, maybe start out with something that transmits frequently, like an access point, like maybe your router, but then switch it up and try to locate maybe your cell phone or something. It might be a good way for you to find a lost phone or other lost Wi-Fi device if you've managed to lose it somewhere in your house. Phone finder, right? Never thought of that. Just market it as that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one thing to keep in mind, you can only track those devices that are actually emitting some kind of Wi-Fi packets. So if the phone has been lying there for several days, it might just be turned off, battery's empty or something. Or even if it's like in deep sleep, then it won't really emit any packets, so you can't really track it. But as long as it's connected to Wi-Fi and active, then you can probably find it, because every so often it will probably send packets each second.
Yes, typically you will see client devices like laptops and cell phones will broadcast less frequently than an access point, because an access point constantly is putting out beacon packets that let other devices nearby know its capabilities and that it's out there. So for client devices, you don't see that happening as much because they only are broadcasting when they need to, when they're exchanging data or something like that. So because they're not constantly beaconing for other devices to connect to them, that's not their purpose. It means that they're broadcasting less, and this tracking technique will require a little bit more patience and maybe a longer update time. So depending on whether you're going after an access point or like an IoT device that's broadcasting its own network, or a client device like, a laptop, a cell phone, or an IoT device that's just connected to a network, you'll see that it's a little bit more difficult to track down client devices because of how much they broadcast. But either way, I think this is a great start for anybody who, A, thinks that their neighbors will never figure out that they're stealing their Wi-Fi, or B, wants to get familiar with tracking down the physical location of a Wi-Fi network, or at least the strongest signal path with a directional antenna. And again, if you want to buy this, you can check out Stefan's store. Stefan, do you have it on your screen?
I have. It's spacehoon.store.
Yeah, so you can check this out. These boards are, again, made by Stefan. They're his first original development board design. You can buy the European Union version on his website there. Or if you live in the United States, you can pick one up on our store, hack.gay/hackerinterchange.com. There's also a link on Spacehoon's store if you head there. So yeah, hopefully you guys like this awesome research. It's stuff that you're into. So if you have any other comments, ideas, things we could do better, please let us know. And if you pick one of these up and you use it in an interesting or cool way, please let us know as well, because we love designing games, other use cases for this, and expanding based on feedback from the community. The whole reason Stefan made this project open source is so that other people can learn from it, develop on it, and make it even better. So if you have ideas how we could push the limits of this, or if you want to work on something yourself, we're always happy to hear feedback, provided it's not insane. All right, so thank you guys for joining us today. We always have a great time with Stefan, so hopefully we will have you on again soon. And yeah, we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I very much enjoyed it. All right, guys, we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.